Warnings in the dark. The massive fleet hung in space like a constellation of artificial stars. 27 vessels of various designs and origins gathered at the edge of what the star charts labeled as Sector 9 Omega. The ships represented 7 different species from across the Galactic Alliance, a show of unity and cooperation for this historic exploratory mission. All except for one, the human vessel, the UES Pathfinder. Unlike the other ships with their sleek hulls and ornate designs, the Pathfinder was utilitarian, built for function rather than appearance. Its heavily reinforced hull was scarred from previous expeditions, and additional sensor arrays had been bolted onto its exterior, giving it a cobbled-together appearance that the other species often mocked. But Captain Ilara Voss didn't care about aesthetics. She cared about survival. "Fleet Command, this is Captain Voss of the Pathfinder," she said, her voice steady despite the tension building in her chest. "I am formally requesting that this mission be aborted. Sector 9 Omega is classified as restricted space under the Terran Accord of 2198. We have records indicating extreme danger." The main view screen showed High Admiral Kavath of the Taurian Empire, his scaled face impassive as his secondary eyelids blinked horizontally across golden eyes. "Captain Voss, the Galactic Council has overruled your government's objections." The vote was 16-1. Only Earth opposed this expedition. Voss leaned forward in her command chair. "With all due respect, Admiral, there's a reason we opposed it. My great-grandfather was part of the initial survey team that discovered this sector. Only his ship returned, and the crew." She paused, choosing her words carefully. The crew was never the same. The final transmission from the other 3 ships was just 2 words: "Turn back." "Human superstition," scoffed Sub-Commander Zelik of the Arcturian fleet from another communication channel. His translucent skin pulsed with dismissive purple lights. "Your species always dramatizes the unknown. That's why you've explored so little of your own galaxy despite having FTL capabilities for over a century." Voss felt her first officer, Commander Takeda, stiffen beside her. "It's not superstition," he muttered under his breath. "I've transmitted all our historical records on this sector to your ships," Voss continued, ignoring the insult. "All the sensor readings, the psychological evaluations of the surviving crew, the analytical data." "We received your data packet, Captain," interrupted Grand Marshal Ix Naber of the Centauri Dominion, her feathered crest rising in irritation. "Our scientists found nothing conclusive. Old sensor equipment, traumatized human minds creating patterns where none exist. This sector contains resources our alliance needs, and we will proceed as planned." Voss looked around at the faces of the alien commanders on her view screen, seeing the same dismissal in all their expressions. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Alliance, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 2 centuries ago. Most of these species had been traversing the stars when humans were still figuring out how to make fire. Their arrogance was legendary, matched only by their disdain for what they viewed as humanity's excessive caution. "Then I formally request that my ship be allowed to withdraw," Voss said. "The Pathfinder will remain at the edge of the sector and continue monitoring." This caused a stir among the alien commanders. Kavath's scales darkened, a sign of anger in his species. "Denied, Captain. The human vessel will accompany the fleet as agreed upon by your government. The mission launches in 6 hours. Fleet command out." The communication ended, leaving the bridge of the Pathfinder in tense silence. "They're not going to listen," said Lieutenant Chen from the science station. "Same old story. They think we're primitive and paranoid." "What do we do, Captain?" Takeda asked quietly. Voss stared at the view screen, now showing only the dark expanse of Sector 9 Omega. No stars shone within it, a void within the void, as if something had swallowed the light itself. "We prepare, and we hope I'm wrong about what's waiting for us in there." Dr. Maya Okafor had spent the last 3 days buried in the Pathfinder's archives, searching for any information about Sector 9 Omega that might have been missed. As the ship's xenorchaeologist, She specialized in uncovering ancient alien artifacts and interpreting their significance, but now she was digging through humanity's own past. Computer, cross-reference all mentions of this sector in pre-Alliance human records, she said, rubbing her tired eyes. Working, the AI responded. Found one partial match in declassified files from the Earth Space Administration, dated 2156, 42 years before first contact with the Galactic Alliance. Maya sat up straighter. Display. A grainy image appeared on her screen showing what appeared to be an ancient stone tablet covered in unfamiliar symbols. The caption read, "Artifact recovered from ruins on Proxima Centauri, believed to be over 50,000 years old. Translation incomplete. Contains star chart with warning symbols around region now designated Sector 9 Omega. Enhance image and run through current translation matrices," Maya ordered. After several seconds, the computer responded. Translation confidence low, but recurring phrases appear to reference the sleeping one, dark between stars, and a warning to never disturb the ancient prison. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Computer, who was the lead researcher on this discovery? Dr. James Voss, ESA Archaeology Division. Voss, Maya whispered, the captain's great-grandfather. She grabbed her tablet and rushed toward the bridge. The fleet entered Sector 9 Omega in formation, the massive vessels moving slowly through the starless expanse. Captain Voss had ordered all Pathfinder sensors to maximum sensitivity, scanning for anything unusual, while the ship's AI continuously recorded and analyzed data. Still nothing on conventional scanners, reported Lieutenant Chen. It's like emptiness. Not even background radiation at expected levels. Commander Takeda frowned. That's not natural. Space is never truly empty. Captain, called Dr. Okafor as she entered the bridge, slightly out of breath. I found something. Your great-grandfather discovered an ancient warning about this sector. It referred to it as a prison. Voss's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of her surprise. A prison for what? Before Maya could answer, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Fleet command to all vessels. The Arcturian scout ship Lumina has volunteered to proceed ahead of the main fleet. All ships hold position and observe. On the main view screen, they watched as the sleek, crystalline form of the Lumina detached from the formation and glided forward into the darkness. Commencing deep scans, came Sub-Commander Zelek's voice over the comms. Initial readings show unusual space-time metrics. Fascinating. There appears to be some form off. The transmission cut off abruptly. Lumina, report, ordered Admiral Kavath. No response. Are they still on sensors? Voss asked her crew. Chen checked his instruments. Yes, Captain. The ship is intact, but something's wrong. Their power signatures are fluctuating wildly. Lumina, this is Fleet Command. Respond immediately, Kavath demanded again. After several tense seconds, the communication channel reopened. This is Navigator First Class Telenav of the Lumina. The Arcturian's voice sounded wrong somehow, flatter than it should be. We experienced a momentary power fluctuation. Systems are stabilizing. We will continue forward. Negative, Lumina, said Kavath. Return to the fleet for systems check. Unnecessary, replied Telnav. We have made a discovery. You should all come see. It's beautiful. Voss felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Fleet Command, something's wrong. The Arcturians never describe anything as beautiful. Their language doesn't even have an equivalent concept. They use mathematical harmony instead. Your xenolinguistic observations are not required, Captain Voss. Kavath responded curtly. Lumina, what have you discovered? Come see, Telnav repeated, his voice becoming even more monotone. All must see. All must join. The Ancient One welcomes you. The communication abruptly ended again. On the view screen, the Lumina began to move deeper into the sector, accelerating beyond its normal operational parameters. They're going to follow it, aren't they? Takeda asked quietly. Voss nodded grimly. Of course they are. Pride and curiosity. A dangerous combination. As predicted, Admiral Kivath's next order came swiftly. All vessels, advance formation. We will investigate the luminous discovery while maintaining defensive posture. Captain, Maya said urgently, that tablet my team found. It wasn't just a warning. It was a binding agreement. Multiple species, including some that went extinct tens of thousands of years ago, all agreeing to quarantine this sector because whatever is in here cannot be killed, only contained. Chen looked up from his sensor station, face pale. Captain, I'm detecting gravitational anomalies throughout the sector. They weren't there before, or our sensors couldn't detect them. It's like something is waking up. Voss made her decision. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Takeda, prepare a data package with everything we've learned and set it to transmit to Earth on a quantum channel if we don't make it back. You believe the old stories, Maya said. It wasn't a question. My great-grandfather was the most rational person I've ever known, Voss replied. When he returned from that first expedition, he spent the rest of his life building monitoring stations around this sector and lobbying to keep it restricted. He never spoke about what he saw, not even to family. His personal logs only said, "It hungers in the dark, patient beyond time, waiting for those foolish enough to wake it." The fleet moved deeper into the darkness, following the erratically moving lumina. One by one, communications between ships began to experience interference. Strange shadows seemed to move across sensor screens, there and gone in an instant. Fleet Command, this is Captain Voss. She tried again, her voice urgent. We need to withdraw immediately. There are patterns emerging in the sensor data that match the historical records from the first expedition. Whatever happened to them is beginning to happen to us. This time, there was no dismissive response. Instead, Grand Marshal Ixnibber's voice came through, uncertainty evident even through the static. Captain Voss, we are detecting something enormous moving below the lumina. Our sensors can't identify its composition. It's as if the darkness itself is moving. For the first time, Voss heard fear in the Centauri commander's voice, but it was too late. They had already ventured too deep, ignored too many warnings. The darkness of Sector 9 Omega seemed to deepen around them, as if gathering itself. On the Pathfinder sensors, impossible readings began to multiply. Space itself seemed to bend and warp, not from gravity, but from something else. Something older, hungrier. And as the fleet drifted deeper into the abyss, a message appeared simultaneously on every ship's communication system, in every language, simple and terrible. You were warned. The hunt had begun. What lurks beyond? The Arcturian vessel Lumina hung motionless in the void, its crystalline hull no longer gleaming with its characteristic bioluminescence. Instead, it pulsed with an irregular, sickly light that seemed to come from within, flashes of deep crimson and midnight blue that had never been part of its design. Life signs? Captain Voss asked, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. Lieutenant Chen shook his head. Readings are confused, Captain. I'm detecting the normal crew complement, but their biosignatures are wrong, altered somehow. The fleet had formed a defensive perimeter around the lumina, keeping a cautious distance. For once, the alien commanders weren't arguing with Voss's recommendations. Fear had a way of cutting through arrogance. Look at that, Commander Takeda said softly, pointing to a section of space behind the lumina. At first, it was barely perceptible. A slight distortion, as if viewing the emptiness through heat waves. But as they watched, the distortion grew, the very fabric of space seeming to fold and unfold in impossible geometries. All ships maintained distance from that anomaly. Admiral Kivath ordered over the fleet-wide channel, his usual confidence noticeably diminished. Before anyone could respond, the Lumina's engines suddenly flared to life. The ship rotated slowly to face the fleet, then opened a communication channel. The view screen showed the Arcturian bridge, but something was terribly wrong. The transparent skinned crew stood at their stations, but they moved with jerky, unnatural motions, like puppets controlled by unseen strings. Their characteristic bioluminescence had changed, matching the sickly pulses now emanating from their ship. Navigator Telnav stepped forward, his face expressionless. "We have found it," he said, his voice overlaid with subtle harmonics that made Voss's teeth ache. "The Ancient One, the Keeper of Secrets. It has waited so long for worthy vessels." "What has happened to your crew?" demanded Grand Marshal Ixnavier. "Improved," Telnav replied with a smile that stretched too wide for Arcturian physiology. "Enhanced. We understand now. We see. And soon, you will too." The distortion behind the lumina expanded suddenly, revealing what looked like a massive structure floating in space, a construct of impossible angles and surfaces that seemed to bend in directions that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. It was enormous, easily dwarfing even the largest ships in the fleet. "That architecture," whispered Dr. Okafor, who had remained on the bridge. "It matches fragments I've seen in ruins across a dozen worlds. Always the oldest layer, always partially destroyed, as if someone tried to erase all evidence of it." "Fleet Command," Voss called urgently. "That structure wasn't there before. Our sensors would have detected something that size. It's manifesting somehow, creating itself or appearing from somewhere else." "Fascinating," breathed Sub-Commander Zelek on another channel. The Arcturian scientist seemed more intrigued than frightened. "A construct that exists partially outside our dimensional reference, perhaps folded space, or—" "It's a gateway," Voss interrupted. "That's what the ancient warnings were about. Not just about something imprisoned here, but something that could come through from elsewhere." On the view screen, Telnav's smile grew wider, his skin stretching unnaturally. "Yes, Captain Voss. The humans always understood, didn't they? That's why they tried to keep others away. But we found the way. We opened the path." His voice changed, deepening and multiplying into a chorus. "And now the Ancient Ones will return to claim what was always theirs." The lumina suddenly accelerated toward the structure, disappearing into its impossible geometry. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a pulse of energy erupted from the construct, washing over the fleet. "Shields!" Voss shouted, but it was too late. The energy wasn't destructive. It was invasive. It passed through shields and hulls as if they weren't there, interacting with electronics and organic matter alike. Throughout the fleet, systems fluctuated wildly. On many ships, crew members collapsed or began acting erratically. On the Pathfinder, the effect was different. "Captain," said Chen in surprise, "our systems are stabilizing. The pulse, it's like it bounced off us." Voss exchanged a look with Dr. Okafor. "The modifications," the scientist said. "Your great-grandfather's designs. The unusual hull composition, the redundant systems. He built this ship specifically to resist whatever's in this sector." A new communication channel opened. Admiral Kivath, his scales now an unhealthy gray color. "Pathfinder, something is happening to my crew," he said, his voice strained. "Some have collapsed. Others are changing. Our systems are compromised. We need—" His transmission cut off abruptly. Similar reports from 5 other vessels, Takeda reported grimly. The Centauri and Volcrin ships seem most affected. The Taurian vessels are showing more resistance, but they're still struggling. Voss made a quick decision. "Open channels to all ships still responding. We're implementing emergency protocol, Omega Black." "Captain," Takeda said quietly, "that protocol hasn't been tested outside simulations. We don't know if it will work." "If it doesn't, none of us are making it home anyway," Voss replied. "Do it." As Takeda began transmitting the emergency protocol, Dr. Okafor approached Voss's command chair. "You knew this might happen," she said. "The Pathfinder was designed for this moment." Voss nodded slowly. Not just the Pathfinder. Every human ship built in the last century has incorporated elements of what my great-grandfather learned. We prepared as best we could, hoping we'd never need it. She looked at the view screen where more ships were beginning to drift erratically. But the Alliance wouldn't listen, wouldn't believe. "Captain, I have Commander Revik of the Taurian cruiser Dauntless," Takeda called out. The reptilian face of the Taurian appeared on screen, his normally emerald scales pale with strain. "Captain Voss, what is happening? Half my crew is incapacitated, and the others report." Voices in their minds. "There's no time to explain everything, Commander," Voss said. "Your ship needs to implement the emergency protocol we're transmitting. It will create a temporary psychic buffer and stabilize your systems." "Why should I trust human technology at a time like this?" Revik demanded, though with less hostility than usual. "Because we're the only ones who came prepared for this," Voss replied simply. "Look around you, Commander. Who's still functioning?" Revik hesitated, then nodded sharply. "Sending to our engineering team now." His image flickered out. 4 more ships responding to the protocol transmission, reported Lieutenant Diaz from communications. 3 are non-responsive, and 5 are behaving erratically. On the view screen, they watched as one of the Volcran scout ships suddenly turned and fired on its own ally, destroying a smaller support vessel in a flash of energy. Elsewhere, 2 more ships were accelerating toward the alien structure, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. "They're being controlled," Takeda said grimly. "Whatever came through that gateway is taking over." A sudden tremor ran through the Pathfinder as something massive moved in the darkness nearby. The sensors struggled to define it. A shadow larger than any of their ships, yet somehow insubstantial. "Captain," Chen called out, his voice tight with tension, "I'm detecting multiple entities moving through the fleet. They don't register as solid matter. More like localized distortions in reality." Dr. Okafor was rapidly scrolling through data on her tablet. The ancient records called them void walkers, beings that exist partially in our dimension and partially somewhere else. They were sealed away eons ago by a coalition of species that understood their danger. "And we just let them out," Voss said quietly. The shadow passed across the view screen, a momentary darkness against the already black void. Something about its movement triggered a primal fear response, a recognition of a predator so alien that the human mind could barely process its existence. "Captain, the Taurian cruiser Dauntless reports successful implementation of our protocol," Diaz reported. "Their systems are stabilizing. 3 other vessels also reporting success." Voss nodded. "Have them form up with us. We need to get the surviving ships out of here and seal this sector permanently." "What about the others?" Takeda asked, looking at the ships now drifting or moving erratically throughout the area. Voss's expression hardened. "We can't help them. They're already gone." As if to confirm her words, the fleet's flagship, Admiral Kivath's massive dreadnought, suddenly powered up all weapon systems and opened fire on the nearest functioning ship. The smaller vessel exploded instantly, unable to raise shields in time. "All responding vessels, form defensive perimeter around the Pathfinder," Voss ordered. "We're implementing Protocol Omega Black, Phase 2. "Captain," Takeda said hesitantly, "Phase 2 requires—" "I know what it requires, Commander," Voss cut him off. "Begin the sequence." Throughout the ship, previously hidden systems began to activate. Panels opened in the hull, revealing devices of unusual design. Technology that had been classified far beyond top secret, developed over generations by humans who understood what lurked in the darkness between stars. Dr. Okafor watched in amazement. "Your great-grandfather, he didn't just discover the warning. He found something else, didn't he? Something to fight them." "Not exactly to fight them," Voss replied, entering a complex authorization code into her command console. "More to cage them again. The ancient species didn't destroy the Void Walkers. They couldn't. They could only contain them." On the view screen, The compromised ships were turning toward the Pathfinder and its small group of protected allies, weapons charging. "They know what we're doing," Chen said. "They're going to try to stop us." Voss opened a channel to the surviving ships. "This is Captain Ilara Voss. All vessels maintain formation around the Pathfinder. Our shield harmonics will protect you, but you must stay close. We are activating a dimensional seal that will recontain the entities and close the gateway. Be advised." She paused fractionally. "This is a one-way operation. The seal will trap anything within its radius." There was a moment of silence before Commander Revik's voice came through. "You're saying we won't be able to escape either?" "No," Voss replied. "That's why the Pathfinder will remain behind to complete the sealing process. Your ships need to depart immediately once we've weakened the entities enough for you to break free." Protests immediately erupted from the other commanders, but they were silenced by a massive impact as the corrupted flagship fired upon them. The Pathfinder's specialized shields held, but barely. "We don't have time to debate," Voss said firmly. "Humanity has prepared for this moment for generations. This ship was built for this purpose." "Your entire crew," Revik said, shock evident in his voice. "You all knew this might be a suicide mission." "We volunteered," Takeda replied simply. "Every one of us." Before more could be said, multiple shadow entities converged on their position, passing through the corrupted ships and accelerating toward them. As they approached, reality itself seemed to warp and distort. "Initiating Phase 2, Voss announced. "All Allied ships, prepare for emergency FTL jump on my mark." Throughout the Pathfinder, the specialized equipment hummed to life, generating a field unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. It wasn't based on conventional physics, but on principles discovered in ancient ruins across a dozen worlds. The same technology that had imprisoned the Voidwalkers ages ago. The shadow entities slammed against the Pathfinder's shields, causing the entire ship to shudder. Where they touched, the metal of the hull began to corrode and transform, changing into something no longer recognizable as matter. "Field at 60%, reported Chen. "Structural integrity compromised in sections 12 through 17. "Reroute power from life support if necessary," Voss ordered. "We need that field at full strength." "Activate the field," she ordered. "Send the final transmission to Earth." As Takeda pressed the activation sequence, a blinding light erupted from the Pathfinder, expanding outward in a perfect sphere. Where it touched the shadow entities, they shrieked in silent agony, their non-physical forms compressing and distorting. The alien structure began to collapse in on itself, its impossible geometries failing under the assault of the dimensional seal. The corrupted ships caught within the field shuddered and went dark, their hijacked crews finally released from torment as the controlling entities were torn from them. On the Pathfinder's bridge, systems were failing in cascades as the enormous energy demand of the field generator overwhelmed the ship's capacity. "Field stability at 40% and falling," Chen reported. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 8. "Reroute all remaining power," Voss ordered. "We need to maintain the field until the seal is complete." Outside, the 3 surviving Allied ships had cleared the danger zone and jumped to FTL, carrying with them the warning and the knowledge of humanity's sacrifice. As the Pathfinder's systems continued to fail, Dr. Okafor approached Captain Voss. "The ancient coalition that first imprisoned them, they must have sacrificed themselves too. That's why the records were so fragmentary. There was no one left to complete them." Voss nodded grimly. "History repeats itself. But this time, we've left better instructions. Next time, if there is a next time, perhaps they'll listen." The shadow entities were being drawn back toward the collapsing structure now, pulled by forces beyond comprehension. Their silent screams echoed in the minds of the Pathfinder's crew as they were once again imprisoned in the space between dimensions. With a final surge of power, the Pathfinder's field generator reached critical mass. The dimensional seal solidified, creating a permanent barrier around Sector 9 Omega, a barrier that would contain the Voidwalkers for millennia to come. As darkness closed in around them, Captain Ilara Voss looked at the faces of her crew. There was fear there, yes, but also pride and determination. They had known the risks. They had accepted them. "It has been an honor," she said simply. The last thing the bridge crew saw before the systems failed completely was the alien structure imploding, taking with it the shadow entities, the corrupted ships, and the danger they posed to the galaxy. The final transmission from the Pathfinder reached Earth 3 days later, a complete record of everything they had discovered, everything they had done, and a warning that would be passed down through generations. The prison is sealed again. The cost was high, but necessary. Remember us, not as martyrs, but as guardians. And should the seals ever weaken, should the darkness ever stir again, remember our last message: turn back. When the Galactic Council convened 2 weeks later to discuss the disaster, the Earth representative stood before them, face solemn. 27 ships entered Sector 9 Omega, she said. 3 returned. The humans warned you. Next time, perhaps you'll listen. In the years that followed, humanity's status within the Alliance changed dramatically. No longer were they viewed as cautious newcomers, too frightened to fully embrace the cosmos. Now they were recognized as the species with ancient wisdom, the guardians who remembered what others had forgotten, who prepared for threats others dismissed as myth. And around Sector 9 Omega, a permanent human fleet maintained watch, ready to send the warning that had saved the galaxy. Turn back.